If you ever get something in the mail without a return address, don't do what I did. Don't be curious. Don't try to rationalize it. Don't tell yourself, it's just a USB drive, what's the worst that could happen? Because I asked that exact question, and the answer is something I can never unsee. I thought it was harmless. A thumb-sized piece of plastic and metal, ordinary, dull, even a little scratched. I've handled hundreds like it at work, at school, lying around in desk drawers. Nothing unusual. Nothing dangerous. But this one, the moment I plugged it in, it was like I'd opened a door that was never meant to be opened. The first thing I remember is the sound. Not from the computer, the USB itself. A faint, static-like buzz, almost a whisper, right against my skin. I laughed nervously, thinking maybe my nerves were playing tricks on me. But then the monitor lit up. And the folder appeared. One folder. No name. No creation date. Just sitting there like it had always been waiting. I shouldn't have clicked it. God, I should have pulled the thing out and smashed it to pieces right then. But curiosity is poison. And it got me. The folder opened, and that's when the videos started playing. Not automatically, not like a glitch. They started one by one, as if someone was choosing them for me. The first clip was, wrong. I can't even explain it without my chest tightening. Grainy footage, washed in static, but what it showed, I swear it wasn't just a recording. It felt alive. I saw places I knew, faces I recognized, moments that couldn't possibly have been captured. And in the background, barely audible, something was whispering my name. I know how that sounds. Like I'm exaggerating, or I've been on too many horror forums. But I promise you, this isn't one of those stories where the mystery is cute or entertaining. What was on that USB shouldn't exist. It wasn't meant for human eyes. And the worst part? That was only the beginning. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. It was just a black, scratched USB, but I swear it was warm when I held it. Not hot, not dangerous, just faintly warm, like it had been in someone's pocket seconds before it landed in mine. That was the first thing that unsettled me, not the look of it, not even the fact that it arrived without explanation, just that eerie, lingering warmth, like it had passed too directly from one set of hands to another. The package itself was nothing special, a plain padded envelope, the kind you'd get if you ordered a phone case or a charger online. No return address, no company logo, just my name and apartment number scrawled in thick black marker. The handwriting was crooked, uneven. The kind of rushed scrawl that makes you wonder if the sender even wanted it to be legible. At first, I thought it was a mix-up. Maybe a neighbor's package, delivered to the wrong door. Happens all the time in my building. But when I checked the label again, my stomach sank a little. My name was spelled perfectly. My address exact. No mistake. I stood there for a while in the kitchen, envelope in one hand, scissors in the other, debating if I should open it at all. A reasonable person might have tossed it straight into the trash. God knows I should have. But curiosity, it's like an itch you can't stop scratching. You want to believe there's a simple explanation. Maybe a promotional gimmick. A freebie from some faceless company. Or a friend playing a prank. So I cut it open. No bubble wrap, no note, no paperwork, just the USB, rattling loose inside. I turned it over in my palm. Black plastic, lightly scuffed, no logos or identifying marks. The metal connector was scratched, dulled like it had been used hundreds of times before. The more I studied it, the more I realized this wasn't new. It was old. Second-hand. Passed along. And that warmth, it hadn't faded. I pressed it between my fingers, half expecting to feel a faint vibration, like it was alive. Nothing. Just warmth. Still, it made me set it down a little too quickly, as if it might burn me if I held on too long. I told myself it was probably harmless. Hell, people leave USBs lying around at work all the time. I've picked up dozens, usually full of lecture slides, tax forms, maybe someone's vacation photos. 99% of the time, it's boring. Harmless. Forgettable. But then again, this one hadn't just been lying around. It had been sent to me. Delivered to my door, handwritten, personal. That detail clung to me like a splinter under the skin. Someone wanted me to have it. Someone knew where I lived. I should have thrown it away. But of course, I didn't. The night I finally plugged the USB in, I told myself it was nothing. I'd had it sitting on my desk for 2 days, the black plastic catching my eye whenever I sat down at my computer. Every time I looked at it, the same thought circled back: it's just a drive. Just a piece of hardware. Stop being dramatic. That was the rational part of me talking. The other part, the itch, the whisper, was louder. What if there's something important on it? What if you're missing out on something incredible? Curiosity is a disease. And I let it infect me. So I slid the USB into the port. The moment it clicked in, my computer made that familiar ding sound, the one you've heard 1,000 times when plugging in a device. Nothing strange about it. The hum of the fan picked up slightly, and the desktop flickered like it always does. Everything was perfectly normal. Then the folder appeared. It didn't prompt me to open it. It didn't ask for permission. It just appeared on the desktop, named with a single dash. No creation date. No modification date. Just a black icon. I hovered over it, heart hammering harder than I'd admit. I almost laughed at myself, getting worked up over a file folder. But the second I double-clicked it, the screen went black for a fraction of a second, like the computer had blinked. When it came back, the folder had opened. Inside were 6 files. Their names looked like corrupted text, strings of symbols and broken letters, like someone had mashed a keyboard with shaking hands. No extensions. No dates. Just those names. The thumbnails were worse. At first glance, they looked like images, but they shifted as I stared at them. Static rippled across the little squares, and the images inside would twitch, glitch, almost like they were moving. You know how sometimes you think you see a face in random static? This wasn't like that. The faces were there. Eyes. Mouths. Half-formed expressions frozen mid-scream. I tried to tell myself they were just corrupted video files. Old data. Junk from some forgotten project. But then one thumbnail shifted, and for a second, I thought I saw my own living room couch. My hand shook as I clicked the first file. The media player opened, glitching before it stabilized. And then, the video began. I can't tell you what I saw in the first 30 seconds, not here. Not without warning you. All I can say is that it was a recording, low-res, blurry, like it had been shot with a broken camcorder. The colors bled into each other. The audio hissed. But the shapes, they were clear enough. People. Moving. Struggling. The frame lurched, like the camera was being carried by someone running. And then a voice cut through the static. A whisper. My name. I froze. It was impossible. It had to be some kind of coincidence, some random noise I'd mistaken for my own name. But the longer I listened, the clearer it became. Someone was whispering it over and over, soft but urgent, as if trying to coax me closer to the screen. I wanted to stop the video. I swear I tried. But my hand wouldn't move to the mouse. It was like the screen had locked me in place, demanding I watch. The footage shifted again, and for a split second, I recognized a building, one just a few blocks away from my apartment. I knew it by the cracked brickwork, the graffiti splashed across the walls. That's when my stomach dropped. This wasn't random. This wasn't some abstract horror clip. It was local. I slammed the spacebar to pause, and the screen froze on a single frame. It showed a dark hallway, the camera tilted as if dropped on the floor. At the very end of the hallway was a door. Closed. But I could see faint movement beneath it. Shadows shifting, something pressing against the gap at the bottom. I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might break a rib. That was when I noticed the video timer at the bottom. The file was over 3 hours long. And I had only watched the first minute. I should have stopped there, but there were more folders. If I'd been smart, I would have ejected the USB right then and there. Walked it down the hall, tossed it in the garbage chute, forgotten it ever touched my computer. But that itch, that gnawing, insidious curiosity, had sunk its claws in too deep. I told myself I'd just check one more file, just to confirm it was all corrupted junk. Digital archaeology, I called it. Picking through forgotten data. Harmless, right? The second file was worse. When I clicked it, the screen didn't fade to black like before. This time, it snapped open instantly, like the video had been waiting for me. The footage was darker, more jagged, almost unwatchable at first. The camera shook, swaying like it was strapped to someone's chest. The frame lurched through a series of hallways, dirty, industrial-looking, with concrete walls and flickering fluorescent lights. At first I thought it was an abandoned factory, maybe a parking garage. But then the camera turned a corner, and I saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway. They weren't moving. Just standing there, perfectly still, their face obscured by the blur. But I swear, the moment they came into frame, the sound cut out. No static, no hum, just absolute silence, the kind that presses into your eardrums until you hear your own heartbeat. And then the figure tilted its head. Just a fraction, but enough. Like it knew I was watching. I slammed the spacebar again, freezing the image. My reflection stared back at me from the monitor, pale and sweating. I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure on screen was staring straight past the camera, straight at me. I almost closed the window. Almost. But then I noticed something at the bottom of the screen. The video's title bar, previously unreadable gibberish, had shifted. The symbols rearranged themselves until they spelled out a word. My hometown. I blinked hard, thinking I was imagining it. But when I looked again, it was still there. Plain as day. My hometown, the place I'd grown up, spelled out in the corrupted text. That was the first time I felt true dread, not just unease, not just nerves, but a cold, hollow terror that seeped into my chest. I should have quit. But instead, I clicked another folder. This one contained 3 files. Their names flickered like they were unstable, and as I hovered my mouse over them, I swear I saw letters rearranging themselves. One file stabilized long enough to form a name. My street. I told myself it couldn't be real. Just a coincidence, some kind of creepypasta-style prank. But deep down, I knew better. The first video in that folder began with static. Then, slowly, an image bled through, my apartment building. The camera pointed upward at the brick facade, shaky but clear enough to recognize. My window, was visible near the top. I froze. My apartment lights were on in the footage. I checked behind me in real life. My lights were on. The video wasn't old. It wasn't archived. It was current. The next 30 seconds felt like hours. The camera zoomed slowly, climbing higher and higher until it centered on my window. The grainy footage wavered as though filmed from the street. I leaned closer to the monitor, heart pounding in my ears. And then, for a fraction of a second, the blinds in the video shifted. Someone inside had moved them. I stumbled back from my desk so fast my chair toppled over. My skin crawled with the certainty that whatever had moved the blinds wasn't me. Shaking, I clicked pause again. My hand hovered over the mouse, torn between closing everything and going deeper. I knew I should stop. But there were still files I hadn't opened, folders I hadn't explored. Curiosity whispered, just one more. The final file in that folder was the shortest yet, barely a minute long. I pressed play with trembling fingers. The footage was nearly pitch black, but faint outlines began to emerge. Furniture. Shelves. A computer desk. It was my apartment. The video panned slowly, almost lovingly, across the room. Every detail was correct, the half-finished soda can on the desk, the crooked poster on the wall, the shoes I'd left by the door. And then the camera stopped. It focused on my chair. Empty. And then, frame by frame, it turned. The angle shifted, the camera rotating until the lens filled with a mirror I hadn't even realized was in shot. The mirror reflected my desk. My chair. My monitor. And me. I was sitting there, staring into the screen. That's when I realized the USB wasn't showing me strangers, it was showing me me. There I was, typing this exact sentence on my laptop. The absurdity of that realization cracked open the room. Somewhere, on another screen, someone watched me form each word. It was impossible and obvious at once. The feed played in a window on my desktop, a delayed echo of my life. My hands floated onto the screen a fraction of a second after they moved in reality. I blinked, the other me blinked a heartbeat later. Small differences, an extra hitch in a breath, a delayed smile, felt deliberate. They didn't just record me. They matched me to a mirror that could be tweaked. I tried the usual fixes. I opened network settings, checked running processes, scanned for malware. My router had no external connections. The webcams listed in Device Manager were offline. I unplugged everything I could, camera, external drive, router. The video kept playing, unbothered, as if it had its own power source somewhere in the air. Panic came in practical waves. I locked the door, clicked the deadbolt 3 times until the metal felt cold and final. I closed the blinds and watched the slats fall with the tiny, familiar clicks that had always been comforting. Now every domestic sound read like punctuation, clicks, hisses, the refrigerator's distant thump. I checked the peephole, the stairwell was empty. I pressed my ear to the door and heard nothing but the blood in my own veins. I have 2 webcams, cheap things I use for calls. Their LEDs were dark. I yanked them off their mounts and covered each lens with a sticky note. It felt childish, but it was some tiny control. I switched my phone off. I unplugged the modem from the wall. The apartment grew quiet in a way that made each small noise ring louder, the radiator sigh, the faint city hum. Still, on the screen, my apartment continued to be filmed. The camera angle matched mine too well, the corner of my desk, the dent in my couch cushion, the crooked poster on the wall. I watched the feed show me reach for a lighter. In reality, I paused. On the screen, my hand kept moving and the lighter clicked. The discrepancy was naked and deliberate, someone was editing how I moved for their audience. I called friends. Voicemail. I called numbers until my thumb ached, but no one answered. The line to my mother went straight to an automated message. I closed my eyes and felt the room tilt. Logic failed, the obvious technical explanations didn't fit. If it wasn't malware, if it wasn't a hacked camera, then the shape of the problem changed into something colder and older. I wanted to scream, to break the laptop in half, to burn the drive and feed the ashes to the radiator. My hands found the USB instead, and for a moment I held it over the trash can like an offering. The urge to destroy it warred with a compulsion to see more. Curiosity, I learned then, is not born of bravery but of a selfish need to know. When at last I opened my eyes, a new thing had appeared on the desktop, a plain text box, cursor blinking. White letters typed themselves into existence, "We can see you." My breath left me in a sob that sounded too small for the room. The message blinked, as if breathing. I reached to close it, but my limbs felt slow, mud-thick, hesitant. In the feed, tiny edits began to appear, moments removed, expressions smoothed, things I had picked up on my desk suddenly missing. It was no longer only watching, it was curating a version of me that could be displayed and manipulated. The intimacy of that control felt obscene. I understood then that I wasn't just observed, I was being prepared for something I could not yet name. I checked the timestamp on the video out of a reflex I couldn't explain. It read real-time, hours, minutes, seconds ticking like a metronome, synchronized to my system clock. Each second felt purposefully measured, like someone counting me down. My pulse matched the digital seconds and my mouth went dry. Time thinned, stretched into a sharpened strip where every ordinary sound suddenly felt deliberate, the fridge's soft grind, the city's far-off horn, the slight grumble of the radiator. I moved with exaggerated caution as if on stage. That's when the messages started appearing. "We see you. Don't unplug it." That's what appeared on my screen in plain white text, black background. No font quirks, no glitchy letters this time, just simple words. Direct. Immediate. My first thought was, it's a prank. Some hacker found my IP, took control of my desktop, and now they were screwing with me. But the thought didn't last long, because as soon as I muttered, "Who are you?" out loud, another line blinked into existence. "You know who we are." I felt the air leave my lungs like I'd been punched. My words hadn't been typed. I hadn't touched the keyboard. I'd only said them. Out loud. I whipped my head toward my unplugged webcam. Its little LED light stayed dead, covered with a sticky note. No way they could have heard me. No way they could have known. But the screen disagreed. "We don't need that camera." I sat frozen, my reflection pale and stuttering in the monitor's glass. My apartment suddenly felt hostile, like the walls themselves had ears. I typed finally, because my voice had deserted me, "What do you want?" The reply was instant. "To show you." A new folder popped up on the desktop. Its name flickered rapidly, like it was cycling through options before finally settling on, "Open Me." Every instinct screamed at me to shut the laptop, rip the USB out, throw it into the street. But I didn't. My fingers moved with the inevitability of a nightmare, double-clicking the folder. Inside was a single text file, log.txt. I opened it. At first, it looked like a chat transcript. Lines of dialogue, questions and answers. But the words weren't mine. They weren't typed in real time. They were from earlier. Things I'd said aloud in the last hour. "Who are you? What do you want?" All written out neatly, time-stamped to the exact second. Then came new lines, ones I hadn't spoken yet. "I should get a knife from the kitchen. Check the hallway mirror again." It moved. My throat went dry. I looked toward the hallway. The mirror there reflected nothing unusual, just the dark strip of carpet and the closed door. But the log file scrolled further on its own, adding new entries. "He doesn't believe us yet. He will." The cursor blinked, waiting. I slammed the laptop shut. The room fell into suffocating silence, my own heartbeat the loudest thing alive. I counted 30 breaths, maybe 40, before I cracked the lid open again. The screen flickered back to life instantly, and the log file had updated. He closed it. "That's rude. It say we're still here." I wanted to scream, but my voice broke into a whisper instead. "What are you?" The answer appeared without hesitation. "We are the Watchers. The Collectors. The Editors. And now, you." Before I could react, the cursor jumped to the end of the log and typed out another line. "Stand up." My body stiffened. I didn't move. "Stand up." I sat frozen, sweat dripping down my back. We see you. Don't make us show you how much. My knees wobbled as I pushed myself up from the chair, every muscle screaming no while something deeper, something puppeteered, whispered yes. The screen shifted. The log file closed, replaced by a live feed again. But this one was different. This one wasn't from my laptop's perspective. It was higher. Angled from the corner of the ceiling, as if there were a camera mounted there. It showed me. Standing in the middle of my room, trembling, staring up at the exact corner where no camera existed. I stumbled back, gaze snapping between the ceiling and the monitor. Empty plaster. No wires. No lens. And yet, the feed kept streaming. I dropped back into my chair. The screen blinked once more, and another text box appeared. Sit. Good. You're learning. The words rolled in like a teacher praising a stubborn child. My hands hovered over the keyboard, too shaky to type. Finally, I forced out, "Why me?" The reply took longer this time, as if it was savoring the moment. Because you opened the door. Because you plugged it in. That simple. That cruel. And then the text began typing itself in a rhythm, one word at a time. Don't unplug it. Don't unplug it. Don't unplug it. The repetition filled the screen, line after line, until my entire desktop was nothing but a chant. A litany of command. I reached toward the USB, hand trembling, desperate to rip it out, to make it stop. And right as my fingers grazed the plastic, a new folder materialized on the desktop. Its name pulsed in red letters, clear, deliberate. The last folder. I thought it couldn't get worse. Then I clicked the last folder. The last folder didn't open right away. When I double-clicked it, a small prompt appeared in the center of the screen, password required. For a second, I actually laughed, a sharp, broken sound that scraped out of my throat more like a cough than humor. After everything I'd seen, after files that played themselves and words that typed on their own, now it wanted a password? It felt absurd, almost like a bad joke. I tried the obvious first, 1234. Denied. Password. Denied. On a whim, I typed let main. The box blinked. Denied again. That's when a thought hit me. The earlier log file, the one that recorded my words. Could it also be predicting? I scrolled back up through the entries and froze. There it was, plain as day, at the exact timestamp I'd first tried to open the folder. Password attempt, let main. Correct password, watcher. I stared at it, throat dry. It wasn't just logging me anymore. It was feeding me the answer. Hands shaking, I typed watcher into the box. The screen flickered. The folder opened. Inside were dozens of files, maybe hundreds, arranged neatly in subfolders. The names weren't gibberish this time. They were clean, orderly, almost boring: basics.mp4, lighting.mp4, disposal.mp4, maintenance.txt. It looked less like some cursed cache of random horrors and more like a curriculum. I clicked the first file, basics.mp4. The video loaded instantly. At first glance, it looked like one of those old instructional VHS tapes teachers used to roll out on TV carts. Grainy, washed-out color, a cheerful stock music jingle in the background. The frame showed a bland room, white walls, metal table in the center. And then a figure entered the frame. Dressed in plain clothes, face blurred as though censored. They moved with practiced efficiency, laying out tools on the table. Not knives. Not weapons. Tools. The kind you'd find in a hardware store. The figure began demonstrating something. Their movements were clear, deliberate, almost soothing. But what they were showing, I can't describe it directly. I won't. It wasn't gore, it wasn't torture. It was instructions. Step by step. calmly narrated in a distorted voice. A how-to manual for something that should never, ever exist. I skipped ahead, thinking I could handle more if I didn't watch it sequentially. But every time I landed on a new timestamp, the same format repeated: calm narration, blurred face, routine movements, teaching, guiding, explaining. The background music even looped like it was meant to soften the horror, like they were trying to make the content digestible. The next file, lighting.mp4, was worse. It showed a similar setup, but this time the blurred figure adjusted lamps, spotlights, even candles. The narration droned about visibility, about angles of exposure. It didn't sound like technical advice for filming or photography. It sounded like they were coaching whoever watched on how to make something visible that wasn't meant to be seen. My stomach turned. I closed the video, only to find a new text document had appeared in the folder while I'd been watching. I clicked it, and the first line froze me. Congratulations. You are ready for the next phase. I slammed the lid of the laptop shut again, pressing my palms against it like I could crush the evil inside. My heart pounded so hard I felt sick. I whispered to myself, it's not real. It can't be real. But deep down, I knew it was. I forced the laptop open again, hoping to see my desktop back to normal. But the folder was still there. Worse, the files had rearranged themselves into a numbered order, as if creating a lesson plan tailored specifically for me. 1. Preparation.mp4. 2. Acquisition.mp4. 3. Execution.mp4. 4. Preservation.txt. Against my better judgment, against every survival instinct screaming in my head, I clicked preparation.mp4. The video showed a living room. My living room. The same furniture, the same crooked poster, the same dent in the couch cushion. Only this time, there were outlines traced across the walls, chalk lines, like stage markings. The blurred figure pointed to them one by one, nodding as if to say, this is where it begins. I gagged, bile burning my throat. My cursor shook across the screen as I moved to close the file. Before I could, the narrator's distorted voice shifted, breaking its calm monotone for the first time. It said my name. Not whispered. Not distorted. My name, perfectly clear, spoken in my own voice. The video ended abruptly. The folder closed itself. And in its place, a single new text file appeared on my desktop. Schedule.txt. I opened it with hands that felt like stone. The file contained one line. 23:59, commence. I glanced at the clock in the corner of my screen. 23:42. And then I noticed the timestamp. It was for tonight. They wanted me to be the next file. That realization didn't hit all at once, it crept up, uncoiling slowly, like the USB itself was feeding it into my brain one poison drip at a time. Every folder, every video, every line of text, it all pointed toward one awful truth: I wasn't just a viewer. I was a participant. And worse, I was the subject. I've read stories like this online before. Creepypastas, urban legends, cautionary tales. Don't pick up strange USBs. Don't click mysterious links. Don't answer when the dead call. We tell ourselves those stories are fiction, neat little packages of fear we can close when the page ends. But none of them ever felt real. None of them ever reached out and gripped me by the throat the way this thing did. This wasn't just a cursed drive. It wasn't a random psycho's home movie collection. It was organized. Structured. Intentional. Someone, or something, had put time into it. Effort. Craft. Like a curriculum designed to break me down in stages until I accepted my role. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how naive I'd been. Stories circulate about the dark web, red rooms, black markets, hidden cults. 99% of it is lies, clickbait, boogeymen to scare bored teenagers. But the other 1%. The 1% is worse than you imagine, because it's real. That's what this felt like, the 1%. A project too big to belong to one person. Too organized to be a prank. Too elaborate to be coincidence. I began noticing patterns. In the instructional videos, the blurred figure always paused at certain intervals, as if leaving space for something, or someone, else to act. The text files didn't just instruct me, they assumed I already knew things, like I'd been part of this before. Like I was just one recruit in a line of many. Even the file names hinted at something wider: acquisition, preservation, disposal. Not my disposal. General disposal. A framework, a methodology. A system designed for multiple users. I remembered the first folder I'd opened, those grainy videos of strangers. At the time, I thought they were random. Victims, maybe. But what if they weren't random? What if they were the others? People just like me who received their own scratched USB in the mail, who gave in to curiosity, who followed the lessons until they became content. The thought made me cold all over. And then there were the glitches, if you could even call them that. Brief flashes of usernames I didn't recognize. Strange, coded references to forums and boards long since shut down. Once, while replaying a clip, I swore I heard faint audio layered beneath the narration. Voices. Dozens of them, speaking at once, too garbled to understand but unmistakably human. That's when it hit me, I wasn't just consuming the USB. It was consuming me. Logging my keystrokes, my reactions, my fear. Feeding it into something larger. A hive, a network, maybe even a ritual. Supernatural. Technological. At that point, the line blurred. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe the point was that the line didn't exist at all. I caught myself whispering, "What do they want from me?" The answer was obvious, but saying it aloud made my skin crawl. They wanted me to be the next file. A chapter in their endless archive. Proof that their system worked. I should have stopped there. Should have thrown the laptop against the wall, smashed the USB to pieces, burned it, destroyed it, anything. But of course, I didn't. And if you're wondering why I didn't destroy it, well, I tried. No matter what I did, it was always plugged in. The first attempt was the simplest. I yanked it out of the port so hard I nearly ripped the whole laptop off the desk. For a moment, I felt a flicker of relief at the empty slot. I held the thing in my hand, breathing fast, thinking, okay. That's it. Done. I dropped it on the floor and stomped. Hard. Plastic cracked under my heel. I ground it into the tile until shards scattered. When I bent down to pick up the pieces, they were warm again. Still intact. Still whole. I froze. My hands were bleeding from gripping too tight, but the USB looked untouched. Not even a scratch. Fine. Fire then. I carried it to the kitchen, turned on the stove, and tossed it straight into the blue flame. The smell of melting plastic never came. I leaned closer, eyes watering from the heat, but it didn't burn. Didn't even discolor. It just sat there, black and perfect, mocking me. Panic rising, I grabbed tongs, flung it into the sink, and doused it with lighter fluid. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the match. When it finally caught, the fire whooshed up in a burst of orange. For a few seconds, the USB was swallowed whole by flame. When the fire died, I leaned over. Empty sink. No ashes. No metal. Nothing. My relief lasted all of 3 seconds, until I turned back toward the living room. It was there. Plugged back into the laptop as if I'd never touched it. That's when the real horror set in. I wasn't just fighting an object. I was caught in a loop. I tried everything after that. Hammer. Microwave. Even a trip outside to the dumpster behind my building, tossing it into a bag of rotting trash. By the time I climbed the stairs back to my apartment, sweating, panting, heart racing, the soft hum of my laptop greeted me from inside. And there it was again, slotted neatly into the port. Waiting. I unplugged it once more, furious, desperate. I hurled it across the room. The instant it left my hand, pop, it reappeared in the port, humming, as if rewinding reality itself. Time started to slip after that. My phone's clock didn't match my wall clock. I'd blink, and minutes would vanish. I'd smash the USB, only to watch it unsmash itself in reverse, as if mocking the very idea of cause and effect. And then the files began to change. One folder was named Attempts. Inside, videos of me, stomping, burning, smashing. Every failure catalogued in crisp detail, even from angles I couldn't explain. Another folder was called Script. I clicked it and felt my stomach plummet. It wasn't video. It was text. Words scrolling in real time, narrating everything I'd just done. Word for word. Sentence for sentence. Even this. I stared at the screen, horrified, realizing my struggle wasn't just being documented, it was being written. Shaped. Consumed. Which brings me back to where I started. If you ever get something in the mail without a return address, don't do what I did. Because here I am again. Back where it all started. The USB is in my laptop, humming quietly, like a predator breathing just behind my ear. The screen flickers with files I've already seen, folders I already tried to destroy, words I already read, yet each one feels sharper, newer, closer. I told myself I'd escape. I told myself this was just tech, just circuitry, just plastic and code. But no matter how many times I smash it, burn it, toss it away, it's always here. Always plugged in. Always waiting for me to click. I've stopped keeping track of how long it's been. Minutes, hours, days, they bleed together. Sometimes I swear I hear knocking at the door. Sometimes it's footsteps in the hall. Sometimes it's my own voice whispering things I don't remember saying. And the files, they keep updating. Right now there's one labeled finale.txt. I haven't opened it yet. Maybe I'm stalling. Maybe part of me knows that once I do, there won't be any more choices left. But I owe you this warning. Because if you're watching this, if you're listening, if you stumbled across my words and thought it was just another creepy story online, remember this, I thought the same thing. I thought it wasn't real. Until it was. If a scratched black USB ever shows up at your door, don't touch it. Don't pick it up. Don't let it whisper to you the way it whispered to me. Because once you plug it in, you're not the one using it. It's the one using you. And if you're watching this right now, maybe it's already too late.